10 true stories that will restore your faith in humanity. Number 10. Camden Eubank's motor speech disorder apraxia meant that he struggled to make friends and had to be homeschooled. Turning 10 years old and with no friends to attend his birthday party, Camden's parents turned to Facebook to find some guests. The story made it to Reddit, and over 300 strangers turned up to Camden's birthday party armed with balloons and cake. One guest even drove for 4 hours just to attend the celebration, while hundreds of other strangers from across the world sent him birthday gifts. Number 9. In 2009, Dan Black was left paralysed and in a wheelchair after a cycling accident. Dan spent 4 years raising $30,000 for himself so that he could afford the pioneering surgery that would allow him to walk again. In the same village, a 5-year-old named Brecon Vaughan was suffering from spastic diplegia cerebral palsy. He needed $91,000 so that he could also have surgery to enable him to walk one day. After reading about Brecon, Dan gave up his own dream of walking and donated his money to him, to help someone even less fortunate. Number 8. Just after World War II, Berlin was in ruins and had its supplies cut off by the Soviet Union. First Lieutenant Gail Halvorson was a pilot who was part of the Berlin airlift, in which US and British soldiers delivered food and supplies by plane. Halvorson was moved by the sight of children peering into the airport through a fence, begging for candy and food. He told them to look out for a plane the next day with wiggling wings. They did, and saw Halvorson's plane dropping chocolate bars and candy using handkerchiefs as mini parachutes. Crowds soon gathered to wait for Halvorson's plane, giving him the name Uncle Wiggly Wings. Even though it broke Air Force regulations, his whole squadron got in on the act soon enough, with the American Confectioners Association donating tons of candy to the cause. 250,000 mini parachutes were dropped, giving sugar highs and hope to the children of Berlin. Number 7. 31-year-old social worker Julio Diaz was walking home in New York when he was robbed of his wallet at knife point. As the thief ran away, Diaz called back, "You might need a coat on this cold night too." The thief was puzzled, but then became even more confused when Diaz invited him to dinner. At the meal, the mugger gave back the wallet straight away. Diaz gave him $20 in exchange for his knife and explained to him that kindness can get you a long way. Number 6. Shang Shua made millions in the steel industry in China, but he actually had a poor background in a tiny village in southern China. Remembering how supportive his neighbours and community were while he was growing up, Shua returned to the village as a man determined to give back. He bulldozed and demolished the wooden homes and buildings that populated the village and replaced them with state-of-the-art luxury homes that he gave to 72 families for free. 18 other families who were particularly good to his family got their own villas, worth about $6 million in total. He also promised to give the older members of the community and low-income earners 3 meals a day so that they could get by. Number 5. Cameron Lyle was a promising track and field star at the University of New Hampshire who gave it all up to save the life of a stranger. At 21, Lyle had his bone marrow data put on a registry, and in 2013 he was contacted after it was found he would be a 100% match for a 28-year-old man who had 6 months left to live. Lyle agreed to donate 2 litres of bone marrow to the anonymous man, knowing that he'd have to miss the rest of his competitions for the year. Lyle claimed it was a very easy choice to make to give somebody a few more years to live. Number 4. In 1980's Orange County, USA, Dr. Michael Shannon delivered a young baby who was very premature. The baby had a 50-50 chance of surviving as he was only 3.2 pounds. But Dr. Shannon worked tirelessly around the clock to save his life and made him healthy. About 30 years later, Dr. Shannon was in a car accident that trapped him in his truck as it caught fire. He was prized out of the burning vehicle by a fire department paramedic who saved his life. As it turned out, that paramedic was the baby that Dr. Shannon had saved himself. Seemingly fate let him return the favour. Number 3. At the height of the religious and political tension and riots in Egypt in 2011, protesting Muslims knelt and began praying in the streets of Cairo. In the middle of the riot, they were vulnerable to harm, so a group of Christians formed a circle around them, allowing them to pray without fear. On the following Sunday, Muslims returned the favour by surrounding Christians who were having mass. They held a cross and a Quran and sang, "In the name of Jesus and Muhammad, we unify," coming together in a time of real tension between the two religions. Number 2. For the 50 years that he lived in his beachside Sydney home, Don Ritchie would watch out of the window at his cliffside view. Ritchie lived right by Sydney's most notorious suicide spot, and he would spot many people approaching the cliff edge ready to jump off and end it all. He would calmly walk towards them, smile, and gently ask, "Can I help you in some way?" He would then take them into his house for a cup of tea and a chat, to calm them down. Ritchie's caring efforts officially saved 160 people from death, although his family states that it was probably nearer to 500. Many people would stop by his house years later and thank him for saving their lives. Number 1. While visiting Nazi-occupied Prague in 1939, British man Nicholas Winton witnessed the terrible conditions Jewish refugees were in and decided to do something about it. He lobbied the British Home Office to accept refugee children from Czechoslovakia. The British government agreed, but said Winton had to find the families himself. After finding families to house the children, Winton arranged for 8 trains to travel across 4 countries to get to London, even persuading customs officials to let children in without documentation. This saved 669 Jewish children from almost certain death. Winton's heroic actions remained unknown until 40 years later, when Winton's wife came across a scrapbook with the details of the refugee children he'd saved. A few months later, the TV show That's Life surprised Winton when they reunited him with the men and women who owed their lives to him.